What's up, ladies? No music tonight because we're going to jump right in like 5 minutes. We'll say hi to everybody, answer some questions, show you that soon we're going to set the record straight on Dragonlance.
Yes.
We got DL1 right here.
The truth is coming out.
Yeah, the truth is coming out. I think
Very cool module.
Yeah, I think that you should reread the Dragonlance novels.
Yeah.
And I will read Dragonlance by reading the modules.
Right.
Anyhow, let's see what we got going on here, guys. Got a whole lot of people. We got it on live chat. We are, like the title says, we are defending an American hero tonight, Gary Gygax.
That's true.
From more slander, or the same slander, but this time it was just a bridge too far. A British person tried to continue.
Stand.
This just cannot stand. So anyways, let me see here. Oh no, are they going to BTFO the Gentleman Gamer like they did Lore by Night?
I don't think we did
did.
BTFO Lore by Night.
We may have mentioned him in passing that he's also British.
Right. Just bad enough.
And yeah, which is bad on its own. And we're sorry to any of you guys who live in the UK. You're honorary Americans in our heart. So we're not talking about you guys. We're talking about the bad Brits. Just all of them.
You have to know your proper place in the pecking order.
Ready to drink coffee for this one.
There you go.
Yeah.
No tea allowed.
And to think about baseball for the first time in a long while. Good. Good evening. How's it going? We got Grognard in the house who has provided us.
That's true.
With DL1.
No one else was there at the giveaway.
Right. So we got that. I also got Strongholds and Followers by Colville, which I haven't read yet, but
it looks much better than the DMG.
Yeah, like way better.
Better than Bastions.
Better than Bastions for sure. Gorgeous book, actually.
Yeah.
There's even an instance of a man wrestling an arm wrestling a woman, and while the woman is muscular, she's not a muscle mommy. You know, it's not the same art style as the rest of 5e. But I'll get to that after I've read the DMG.
In that fight?
I think they hadn't started yet.
Oh,
They're both
okay.
like, but very high quality book, at least presentation wise, and the cover and everything.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. It's got like a mass combat system in the end that heavily abstracts things, which is cool. And the only thing I hate, if you ever make a book,
save the king. Australian monarchist here.
Well, thank you for the $2.
Thank you, man.
But if you ever make a book, don't put a dust jacket on it.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Why would you do that? Because even the cover is just black underneath it. And it has
looks
like,
so much better.
Yeah, it looks so much better. It's got like debossing. So, you know, it says Strongholds and Followers and it's gold foiled and like.
Which is completely wasted by having a dust jacket.
A dust jacket. Yeah. And the thing is, dust jackets just belong in the trash because all they do is get crumpled up and horrible.
Damaged. Yeah.
Damaged. So don't ever do that. But I'm making my way through the 2024 DMG. I'm about halfway through right now. I just got into the Greyhawk section, and there's going to be at least one video about this book because I'm reading the entire thing. Except I'm reading 2/3 of the thing because I'm not going to read the magic items because I don't care.
Cares?
I'm not going to use them, even though that will be the most used part of that book by far.
Yeah.
Anyway, greetings from Canada. How's it going?
All
man?
right, from the 51st state.
Hail chat. Malachi's in the chat here. I wore my helm of authority to the cardiologist today. They had no response. Exactly. And the helm of authority, of course, is the BLG merch that we got. The no apologies, no compromises black hat that's inspired by nothing in particular. What did the Gentleman Gamer do recently to earn the ire of BLG?
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that very, very soon. Dreger Cronus has a good question. Howdy, y'all. Quick question. If a dumbass bought y'all's books without owning any D100 system to use them with, which would you recommend? Or can Colts / the Oyster work with D10 / White Wolf?
White Wolf?
I don't know what WW is. The answer is that the Shucked Oyster can be used with basically any D20 system, modern D20 system. It's meant for Shadow Dark. Yeah. It has a compatibility guide for Axe 2. So those it'll work out of the box, but very easy to just swap the monsters out. Like if you wanted to do it in 5e, just swap the monsters out with your 5e books,
Right.
and that'll be fine.
For Cults of Zahak,
Mythras
Imperative, which is free.
Free. It is a free D100 rule set on Drive-Thru RPG or the Design Mechanism website.
Right.
That is what it's being built from, and it's all there for you. Big Lake Games. Yep. Let me see here. Smoking cigs. I could tell some of the NPCs wanted to say something, but the fulsome power of the helm was too much for them. Yeah.
Quite true.
I'd possibly look into other game systems that use roll under mechanics off the cuff. Could even suggest taking a D100 game and divide the target number by 5. It fits a D20 net.
Yeah, I mean, there have been like conversion guides for D100 to fit into D20.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do that, you could.
And
I would say just use Mythras Imperative.
And there's people who have backed it who told us that they're going to use it in D&D anyway. They're like, I'm just going to mine it for ideas. And I was like, great.
Yeah. The ideas and the premise are the most important thing for both the Shucked Oyster and Cults of Zahak.
Correct. Looking for guns. The American colonists that fought the British were terrorists. 4 minutes and late.
Not true.
Is a 1776 Braunstein about to begin? Who's playing Cornwallis then? No.
No.
Bro, the fucking Game Awards are right now. Who cares?
They all suck.
Video games blow, dude.
Video games are terrible. Nearly all of them. And a lot of the trailers are just CGI non-gameplay footage trailers.
Yeah, we watched
They
two
tell
of them
you
before
nothing.
this. Witcher 4, pre-rendered in-engine
Who
on
cares?
an unspecified RTX card. Who cares? If it's pre-render, I could pre-render something.
Yeah.
This is, I don't want to see pre-rendered shit. Show me the fucking game. To the mountain, that belongs in a museum. No, it doesn't.
Zach called us swirlies in the name of God.
Gives a hot cultist swirlies in the name of God. Yeah,
And more besides.
And the Witcher 4 trailer was ass. Exactly.
Yeah, who cares?
The Gentleman Gamer is like what you'd come up with if you were trying to make a ridiculous parody of a British RPG YouTuber. I can't believe it's real. Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
His old vampire content was great. Like, he was the only guy talking, one of the only people really talking about Vampire the Masquerade.
He used to be good.
He used to be good.
The Gentleman Gamer now, and for the past 10 years, is the bad ending. He's the guy who had good taste. He was focused on role playing.
Right.
He was putting out good content for early.
Video games are a waste of money.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, he introduced me to one of my favorite games, Stalker, the sci-fi RPG.
Yeah.
Which is based on the source material that the Stalker video games are based on, but they're very different.
Yeah, it's a shame. It didn't have to be this way.
Yeah, it didn't. It
He
really
used
didn't
to
have
be
to be this
one
way.
of us, and he achieved the dream. He got a job working,
Writing in the industry.
and for a company and for a bunch of game lines that he truly loved
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
But no longer. He's
Yeah.
become a bitter, bitter man.
Yeah. Tea goes in the sea. You're damn right,
That's
Tora.
right.
Jack McCarthy, good to see you here. The one good thing you can say about the Brits is they aren't Canadian. I hope you all fight in the chat over that. Hey, fellas, Gygax's name will live long after all these fools are dead, and long after all of us are dead, too. As it should. Dane Seipel's in the house.
What's going on, man?
Cooking up. I saw the early bits of the flesh golem for Colts, and it looks awesome.
It's coming together.
Yeah. R.I.P. to Queen. Hell yeah, down with King George. Yeah. Greetings from San Antonio. Nice. I was in San Antonio not long ago. Maybe I'll visit Austin soon. We do need to have another meetup. It's not going to happen before the
end of the
holidays
year.
are
Yeah.
over, though. Literally Journo awards plus ads. Yeah. I didn't realize how exhaustive the updated Mythras Imperative was. Great base for Cults of Zahak. It's really good. And in combination with classic fantasy imperative, there's so much there.
Right.
There's so much there to draw from. It's awesome. We were a little worried when we first started, not for Cults, but because we had Cults is, there's a larger project that Cults is kind of a piece of. We were a little worried, like, maybe we won't be able to use the orc license stuff. And we kind of thought about it and we're like, no, this is perfect.
This is fine.
This
Yeah.
is perfect. It has
anything Imperative doesn't have, we
can-
intended to make anyway.
Yeah, we can make anyway. It's such a good base. Like, and Imperative is great because it's got firearms rules. It's got stuff for sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking awesome. It's a great system. I'm pre-rendering my food right now. Like any AAA game, it's going to be shit when it comes out. All right. I play a very different Stalker game too. I'm putting Cults of Zahak into GURPS. It's all about the inspiration. Yes, Mythras works for BLG's vision, and my table is just afraid of the D100.
Well, they shouldn't
It's
be
so
afraid,
simple.
but fair enough.
D100 is so simple.
It's so good too.
All right. Anyway, we're gonna get this started though. The content's gonna start a little bit earlier than usual because the video he made is an hour long. There's no way we'll get through all of it because we're
Right.
gonna be stopping
All the
and
time.
commenting. But let me get this.
We're doing Shauna proud tonight.
Yeah. This is our first of several tributes to Shauner. Let me see here.
All right.
All right.
So the title of the video, which is not on the screen, is RPG Elon Musk. There you go. Elon Musk to buy D&D and raise Gygax with necromancy? Shocking news or nothing story?
Nothing
So
story.
Matt Dawkins, the gentleman gamer, is weighing in on the Elon discourse several days later than most people.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming and News! That's right, except this news is about 2 weeks, maybe even a month old, because I don't really make news videos on this YouTube channel. I don't really engage with game industry news, if I'm quite honest. On this channel, we talk about what's in the books rather than what's going on around them, and I'm sure you appreciate that. I mean, that's maybe why you've subscribed to this channel. It isn't that I'm apolitical, by no means, but I don't believe in preaching one opinion over another on this channel.
We'll
It's
see
not the
about that.
Yeah, we shall see about that.
venue for it. My opinions might speak for themselves during the course of games, but I try to present an array and without condemning anything completely in the games that I write.
We're going to stop right here for 1 second because I just want to see if I can get our chat up so we can keep track of you guys. Make this a little bit smaller. You would think 2 screens would be enough, but it's really just not. All right. Is he 44? He might be. I mean, if he's a
I think he's
millennial.
our age.
Yeah.
I don't
Probably
think
like late
he's not
30s,
44.
Maybe 40.
I think he's younger than. I don't know how old he is.
Nevertheless, we have news. News of a vaguely political nature. I mean, everything is political, don't get me wrong. Any media you digest, whether it's your games, your movies, your video games, your music, it will often have some kind of edge to it that will have a political beat, shall we say. You may not agree with it. You may not even pick up on it. It doesn't mean it's not there. And maybe the fact that
You'll definitely pick up on
We've
it.
all picked up on it.
Right.
If you have...
The only reason everything is political now is not because it had to be that way.
And previously, when games had... Like, the World of Darkness is an excellent example. This is a game line that has always touched on real-world events, but it was not being used as propaganda, basically. The games were not preaching to you.
Right.
at
The games
time.
were not a vessel for the writers, the
Right.
developers' personal politics,
Right.
which they certainly are now.
you haven't picked up on it is a political statement in itself. I don't know, and that's not the subject matter of this video. Let's get into the subject matter, shall we? As I say, normally I wouldn't talk about news in the gaming industry. It doesn't really interest me. I tend to stick largely to local politics and global politics, I guess, but my point is
I tend to stick to all politics.
Right.
engage in industry news, discourse, or gossip. The few times I have, I tend to get stung, so I just don't really see the benefits or the interest, and I steer well clear. So I was completely unaware of this until a couple of very much valued Patreons, subscribers to this YouTube channel and members of my Discord, where they can ask me all kinds of questions, and often do. It's one of the benefits of being a Patreon. You get the benefit of my wisdom whenever you want it. Asked me, what do I make of Elon Musk's idea of buying Hasbro, or words to that effect? My first reaction was, oh God, really?
Oh, jeez.
Oh God, this asshole.
Yeah.
Again. This one again.
Do I really have to weigh in here? Can't we be above it all?
And I said I hadn't heard anything about this. They linked me to an article.
I do got to say this, Trevor Chapman. It's totally fine to have a sales pitch in your video. It's your channel. We do the sales pitch all the time.
Yeah.
We did
The
a sales
sales pitch
pitch
is
for
not
the
the
merch
problem
earlier.
here.
Yeah, and someone bought merch today. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
And it should be on the way soon.
Someone bought a hoodie.
A hoodie and the pre-workout decanter.
Yeah.
Article, I read up on it, and my initial opinion was, well, it's not going to happen. Elon Musk is a very impulsive and compulsive individual. He tweets out masses of nonsense, and he basically reacts to whatever triggers the zeitgeist of the time.
100% false.
This is a man who 20 years ago laid out his plans for SpaceX and said, we're going to start by making reusable rockets, and our first business opportunity that we're going after is low orbit satellites. And that's how we'll make money. And then eventually we're going to switch to that will pave the way for human transit.
Right. And that's exactly what happened.
And that's what he's been doing. And it took 20 years to get there. This is not someone who is short-sighted or impulsive. This is so fucking stupid.
Yeah. And funnily enough, slightly related story. I have said before, I ran games for Onyx Path for many years at Gen Con.
Yeah.
And one of the other people, part of the Wrecking Crew, who run games at a bunch of conventions, Gen Con included, one of them way back at this, when would this have been? Back in 2010, maybe? Was an early employee at SpaceX. And was making the same argument, like, because even, especially back then, like, what is Elon Musk doing? What is this SpaceX thing? We're going to go to Mars. Like, no, you don't get it. We're making it happen. He's making it happen.
Yeah.
Like, the guy is not, first of all, being impulsive and compulsive.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're exactly opposites, but
It doesn't matter.
Those are not accurate assessments of Elon Musk.
No.
At all.
At all. This is one of the things, because he'll talk about Elon more later on in the video.
I do suspect he's right in that he probably won't buy Hasbro.
Sure. Almost certainly.
Yeah.
But this these people have no ability to empathize. They literally cannot imagine what this other person must be like, because this person says things
that they disagree with.
That I disagree with,
and yet
that
they're
I don't
so
like.
successful.
Right.
Something doesn't compute here. Something must be wrong, or something must be off about this person. He must be weird. Elon Musk is really weird.
He's really weird. He's an idiot. People will say this. He's a fucking moron. I'm like,
he's a bad businessman.
I'm like, the richest person in history is an idiot. And I brought this up to you while we were watching this the first time. I was like, do you think George Soros is an idiot?
No, of course not.
You don't think George Soros is stupid?
Yeah. No.
Because he's not.
He's not. I hate him.
I hate him. Yeah. I do hate him. He is evil.
Yes.
But he's not stupid.
He gives as much thought to a tweet as he does to his morning shit. Probably less, to be honest, unless it really lands with his audience. And that's because
Also, this is another thing. First, Elon also says very funny, short things that I'm sure he sends and then forgets.
Yeah.
Which is actually how you're supposed to not only use Twitter,
yeah,
but it's also how you're supposed to communicate normally in life. These people cannot...
Oi, GG, you got a license for that hell.
Definitely not. That's why it's not there.
Yeah. I don't have a license for my hairline either.
Yeah. Sad.
Nor would I.
But the idea is so infuriating. People being normal and unthinking and what's the word? Just casual.
He's weird, says the reptilian spokesman.
Yeah.
Yeah. These people have to and do specifically calculate every single thing that they say or write based on this sociopathic social calculus as to how is this going to be perceived, who's going to be offended, how is this going to make me look
right
in the aftermath. What do I get out of it, and what do I possibly lose?
But it's what is the consensus that I need to tailor this to?
Right. Again, all the accusations are confessions. Elon Musk is impulsive, yet he only cares about what the audience of Twitter is going to care about.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing is that people are like, he's obsessed with, his audience, and like they make him out like he's like some sort of social media influencer in the type like us being YouTubers or something. And it's like, you are how stupid do you have to be to believe that? The guy has, and I don't even like electric cars, but he's revolutionized the electric car market.
Right.
For sure. Mm-hmm. He's also burrowing down into the earth where the loot is, as
obviously,
we've
as we've properly said. We broke that story.
We broke that story. He's going to space. And
he literally saved NASA astronauts from getting stranded on the ISS.
And the other thing, he bought Twitter and he basically helped select who the next president is.
Right.
Like this guy's not dumb.
And he actually brought free speech
back to the
Twitter.
internet. Yeah, holy shit.
It didn't used to be that way.
Which it didn't used to be that way. And all of these people that are like, oh, Twitter sucks now. I'm like, what are you talking? This is the best thing that's ever happened.
Who thrives on attention, on stirring the pot. He's an opportunist, politically as well.
Yeah, he's an opportunist.
Right.
He's an opportunist.
Someone who's only chasing clout.
He's a
That's
clout
how he
chaser.
how he became the most successful, richest man in history.
Right.
That's my psychological and political opinion, my analysis of Elon Musk. He is someone who provokes others because he has never had to suffer the consequences of doing so.
No.
It was so easy for him to accomplish all these things. He never suffered hardship.
Yeah.
Never had a setback. He just wrote a check and then Tesla happened. These electric cars just spawned in.
And here's the thing about the way that Musk runs his businesses is every time he makes a big bet, he bets the whole company. And it's possible that at some point, one of these companies is going to implode because he makes the wrong decision.
Right.
He bets big because he knows he's right most of the time. Mm-hmm. And he's also, it's like, take a look at what he did with Twitter. He fucking cleaned house, got rid of 80% of the fucking company, and it's better now.
Than it ever had been.
It is better than it ever has been as a product. Like, this is absolutely fucking wild.
He's an opportunist in that he creates opportunities for himself after years of hard work.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you, K. Dolo. That is 100% correct.
Coming from a very wealthy, secure family. And
imagine living scared of cancelers, over-equipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
The political aspect is, he's an opportunist. He'll be a Democrat. He'll be a Republican. He'll be a Libertarian. He'll probably be a damn anarchist if he felt it benefited him personally. He doesn't really care.
That's why for like 30 years he was a Democrat or
Right.
whatever. It was just because he thought it would politically benefit him, and he has
Yeah.
no real political convictions at all, which I think is demonstrably false.
Of
based
course, it's
on
demonstrably false.
what he wants to do.
And this idea that Elon Musk is this chameleon who's only doing things based on the social calculus.
Right.
That's absolutely insane. It's not insane. It's just dishonest.
It's just stupid.
Because it's very-
stupid and dishonest.
It's immediately self-evident as to what kind of a person, what kind of interests, what kind of values Elon Musk has. Because Elon Musk is just an honest actor as
He will-
opposed to a dishonest
And
actor.
he will tell you
Right.
what they are, and then he'll spend $40 billion to make it happen. Literally.
Yeah.
All that much for everyone else's feelings. You might appreciate that aspect of the man. You might resent that aspect of the man. That's my personal view of the man. All power to you, Mr. Musk. Now, what does all this mean? Why was he interested in buying Hasbro? Well, as it turns out, I don't think he is. He fired off a tweet that basically said, how much is Hasbro? As in, how much is it worth? Can I afford it? Of course he can afford it. Because if Elon Musk doesn't like something, he can buy it and change it. Of course, it may come back and bite him. Arguably, the purchase of Twitter has done exactly that.
How has that bit him in the ass?
In any way,
In
shape,
any
or form.
way, shape, or form. He basically got to like
Elon Musk is a master manipulator. Really?
yeah. Thank you, Matthew. But this is another one of these things where it's like this makes no sense on its own. So Twitter, yeah, all the advertisers pulled out. They're back, by the way. They're all coming back directly after the election was over, which is a little odd way to time that. He cleaned house, made the company way more efficient, got rid of all of the dog shit. There's now features being implemented that are quite good. And beyond that, with the restoration of free speech and with his own political activism using that platform, the guy he wanted to be the president of the United States, the most important political office in the world, is in large part due to what Elon Musk did.
Right.
Musk
How
being
did
a
this
social
bite him in the
chameleon
ass?
Is a big projection.
Musk being a social chameleon is a big projection. Exactly.
Yes.
This is this is absolutely fucking insane way to view things. And again, this is not even a failure of empathy. This is just literally, how could you possibly make this evaluation other than this kind of emotionalized response to, ugh, that guy sucks. He's not on our team. Fuck him. You know, like, oh,
And
yeah,
that's
Twitter's bit him in the ass.
That's all that this is.
He selected the fucking president.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Like, how is that not the biggest fucking benefit that you could possibly
Yes.
have?
That he was just firing out a knee-jerk tweet and that he probably forgot about 12 seconds later. But where did this all originate? Why did he do this? Well, here's where we get into essay territory. That's right, this video is probably going to be a longer one than usual because we're really going to drill down into the subject matter, and it goes far beyond Elon Musk wanting to buy Hasbro and create D&D Musk Edition. And I will emphasize again, I don't think it's going to happen. I just cannot see it.
It probably won't.
It probably
but
won't.
I can see
I
it.
can see it happening.
Because, again, Elon Musk actually has passion for things and he actually has values. And Elon Musk
And he's
is
got
very intelligent and he does.
money.
He has money and he knows how to wield power. He knows
Yeah.
how to wield his money. And Elon Musk is not a moron,
Right.
despite what people who disagree with him say.
Right.
And again, I don't think it's going to happen, but buying,
Nobody thought he was going to buy Twitter.
yeah,
Nobody
thought
thought
that was going to happen.
Nobody thought electric cars were going to be bought by anybody, or that he was going to be able to make a car that people could afford,
Yeah,
or that he would make rockets like he has.
yeah, yeah. But
Or
again,
it's like every single thing that this guy has done throughout his career, everyone said it would not work and it would never happen.
yes. And Elon Musk is very aware, along with a lot of other people, of how much things everywhere have gotten worse and what the
Worse.
existential threat of this malaise and this cancer actually is. It's
Right.
a big part of why, and he's openly said this many times, it's a big reason why he purchased Twitter in the first place.
Right.
Well, let's get to the crux of the issue. Why did it come to his attention? Well, you see, there's a 50th anniversary book that celebrates Dungeons & Dragons' 50-year existence on this planet, starting all the way back in 1975 and, of course, reaching 2025. That's 50 years. See, I can do maths. And
I hate that he says maths. And I hate that about the British.
in this book, the author, Jason Tondro, I don't know if there are more than one author on this book, but I know Jason Tondro is one of them. I don't know the man, but apparently in the preface to this book, The Making of Original Dungeons & Dragons, he says this. I'm going to interrupt it occasionally. Some language in the first iteration of D&D presents a moral quandary. The documents reproduced in this book include many pages of charts and tables alongside lists of monsters, spells, and magic items. But that game content also includes a virtual catalogue of insensitive and derogatory language, words that are casually hurtful to anyone with a physical or mental disability or who happens to be old, fat, not conventionally attractive, indigenous, black, or a woman. Interruption here. This is not something scandalous. This is not something unknown. This is something that I think has been broadly discussed for many, many years, and is something I would imagine the vast majority of people are aware of by now, that D&D, across its successive editions, all the way up until probably third, and of course, as we know, third edition isn't actually the third edition of D&D. There have been lots of D&Ds in between, from old school D&D, AD&D, and so forth. But we know that in the course of its first 25 years, it evolved. It evolved in a major way, because while there were definitely female characters, heroines, in the course of Dungeons & Dragons, they were often eye candy. There were often damsels in distress. There were often chainmail bikinis. What's more, we also know that there were exoticized, orientalized parts of the world. The Oriental Adventures, Shu Lung, or Karatur.
First of all, it was a fantasy-inspired version of these other cultures and regions. Just by having those things does not make it stereotypical or exaggerated in some way. There were no depictions of non-white people in a way. Yeah, this wasn't like a World War II propaganda. You can't even make that argument. Right. It's just that you had. There were no overt facial features from anybody or for any reason. It's just that there was a fantasy Arabia. There was a fantasy Orient. Right. This is such a dishonest argument.
They also, I'm almost positive that Oriental Adventures was proofread by two native Japanese
it might well
people,
have been.
like the
but again, it
thing.
wouldn't. It doesn't even matter. The truth doesn't matter.
Yeah, the truth doesn't matter. And that is the point here, is that all of this stuff that they're people, I think, in our kind of sphere and who are into the culture war stuff, they get caught up on trying to say, well, no, this wasn't actually racist, or no, Gary wasn't actually sexist. And it's like, none of that matters.
None of that matters. That's the point. It's a dishonest, bad faith argument from the get-go.
From the get-go, it is in bad faith.
You can't debunk this. You can't prove them wrong. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. There were Japanese playtesters, Malachi says.
Zakara or Al-Qadim. Places that were rough translations of pop culture versions of real-world cultures that appeared in games, and the peoples from them. Now, let's talk about them a little, shall we? Because I would say that that is not just a D&D problem. That doesn't mean D&D doesn't bear a share of the weight, which I feel, for the most part, is addressed pretty well. Fantasy and sci-fi, speculative fiction in general, has always had the problem. Look back to Tolkien and the Easterlings, for example.
Yeah, that
of
evil guy Tolkien.
representing cultures, and often women, as damsels in distress, as exotic, foreign, savage, uncivilized, brutal, murderous, otherwise scary. In
All
a
things
way
that are real.
I
There are brutal,
suppose
savage,
appeals
scary
to that
people out
idea
there.
of
Yeah.
being a Western European landing on, let's say you are one of the conquistadors. Yeah, that gives you a moral high ground, doesn't it? And you are
And literally everyone who's ever existed has the moral high ground over the Aztecs.
Yes.
They,
They were an evil culture.
they were an evil culture. And we'll get to this in just a moment. He will talk a little bit later on about representing different cultures in games and whatnot. We have a game about the Aztecs where you play as the Aztecs, and it is very, very authentic as to the experience and the culture and the myths. And it is taken seriously from the point of view of those people. And it's brutal. And there is a Conquistador supplement coming up for that.
are one of the first Spaniards to arrive in Tenochtitlan, and you see how these Mexica, the Aztecs as they will become known by the Spanish, treat their own in the course of their religious practices. If we follow all stereotypes purported through...
They're not stereotypes.
Yeah, like there
When
were
you-
only a few people doing human
Yeah,
sacrifice. I promise.
there was only a few guys who were ripping out people's human hearts by the thousands.
Yeah.
And like this is
Only a select few of bad apples.
right. This is psychotic. That people will. It's so ridiculous. The truth is there are better and worse cultures in history. That's all there is to it.
Yes.
Some are brutal, violent, bad people.
Yeah.
And there's no other way that you can look at this. And the fact that it's like, oh, yes, well, the conquistadors are the bad guys. It's like, have you read anything?
About what it was like over there.
Like, holy shit.
through history. You're going to be alarmed. You're going to be surprised. You're going to not identify what they're doing with your Catholic reverence for Mary and the Christ and God. You are going to maybe try and get them to replace some of their idols with those of your own religion, but
I'm sorry, but the human sacrifice has to stop.
Yeah, and it will stop.
And it will stop.
Right, and it did. And that was
You're coming
good.
back with some very interesting stories. There is an exoticism. There's a frightening aspect to it.
Because they were scary.
Right, because they were
Because people who chop people's heads off to appease their gods and rip out their hearts
is
evil and scary. Because we know. Oh,
and
God,
those people should be slaughtered.
And this appears quite a lot in fantasy games, in sci-fi. Hell, look at the Klingons in Star Trek as they originally appeared. These were men often put in brown or yellow face to appear...
Yeah, the
like
African
yellow
Chinese
peril.
analog, the direct analog for these real world cultures, the Klingons. Like this is such bullshit.
And they were, Klingons were, I believe, a broad amalgamation of Soviet Russians and Communist Chinese with a very Mongol warlike tendency. You know, there was a whole Asian blend going into the Klingons. And this appears also in Dungeons and Dragons and various fantasy fiction. Look from Conan, as I say, to Tolkien. It's everywhere.
Also,
And it is a
this is always the case. I know it's a midwit observation, but I am a recovering midwit. Nope.
Aztec chose cold.
Yep. Aztec equals chaos cult. Exactly.
That's true. This happens
And the name of the game we were referring to is Makwahitl.
Makwahitl by the Basic Expert.
By the Basic Expert.
This always happens where there's an enemy faction or enemy group in fiction, in media somewhere, oh, these people are bad. They're portrayed as bad. Usually because, yes, they are warlike, they are savages, they are barbarians, and they are an actual physical or even an existential threat, depending on how powerful they are. Okay, you're portraying these bad attributes, these objectively bad attributes.
Yeah.
That must be this minority group.
Right.
Like,
Shut the fuck
the left
up.
are the only ones who are so quick to say the Klingons or this, that, whatever are blacks, Chinese, gypsies, Mongols, whatever. Like, no, but you're the only one saying that. You're the only one saying that or
Right.
seeing that correlation.
Your fucking community college
Philosophy
degree means nothing.
has been a disaster for the
It's been
human
a
race.
disaster for the human race.
It's reductive, it's lazy, it's immature, it doesn't feel terribly well thought out. It's, I guess what I would put it down to most is childish. Juvenile is maybe the best way to look at it. Whether you're offended by it is entirely in the eye of the beholder. I am one of these people that seems to think, I don't know much about woke, being a white, straight man in southern England. I
don't
know
harm
what
me.
I think is polite. I know what I think is
This is
decent.
also...
See,
this is a
I'm
bunch
just
of-
being. Don't you just want to be decent?
This is such fucking bullshit. These people at the Gentleman Gamer, especially here, he's putting on a British minstrel show right here. He's being the irritatingly overly polite, neurotic Brit,
Right.
who is above it all.
Right.
I don't know anything about this, that, or the other. Why can't we just be sensible? But he's putting over clearly a moral argument here.
Yep.
He is saying the Klingons in this example, they were the Mongols, they were blacks, they were Chinese.
Yeah.
It is a racist depiction of these real-world ethnic groups. But then in the next breath, in the next sentence, you can be offended at that. You cannot be offended at that. You can judge it for what you will. Who am I to say? Having just said it explicitly.
Yeah. Having just said it, who am I to say?
Gentleman gamer, more like gentleman.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matthew.
And progressive, courteous, friendly, but I would struggle probably to identify as anyone who has ever been victimized, who has ever been prejudiced against, largely as a result of my skin color, my gender, the country I am from.
This is just lamb's
it would be
blood.
inappropriate, I suggest, and this is just my opinion, mind you, to be offended on the behalf of a people being misrepresented, or a gender being misrepresented, or a sexuality being misrepresented in a game. That doesn't mean I can't find it distasteful or unpleasant. And it would mean that when incorporating these things into my games, I will put a little more mature effort into it. I won't just present them as carbon stereotype.
Which is not what the
this is
Klingons
what
are
a-
or what anything is. Like, I'm going to do the work without ever having defined what the work is or how the initial inspiring media source has failed to do the work.
Right.
It's always a straw man. None of these so-called cardboard cutout depictions are that.
Right.
An X should look like, and a lot of those old role-playing games went for that in a lot of ways. Whether we're looking at things culturally, racially, gender-wise, there's a lot of stereotyping that goes on, and I think it is ultimately, as I say, juvenile. It's lazy. It isn't the kind of maturity I like in my role-playing games. I would look at something like Legend of the Five Rings to look beyond Dungeons and Dragons, look beyond Star
Which
Trek,
is
and
literally
say,
fantasy Japan in all of its complexity and like bureaucratic Byzantine.
I apologize for the stupidity of my race.
yeah.
You are not forgiven.
Again, it's like L5R is explicitly fantasy Japan. Okay. How is that in and of itself more or less stereotypical? You can make the argument that it's more stereotypical because it's explicitly trying to be that. And I'm not even making that case.
You never would.
I never would.
Because
Again,
you're not evil or
I'm
retarded.
not evil or dishonest.
Yeah.
This is a completely dishonest argument. You're just saying Legend of the Five Rings. I do it like Legend of the Five Rings. There's not anything in L5R which is presenting extra levels of abstraction or thematic padding between actual Japan and this
These carbon copy resist, but Mexican hats on orcs is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such bullshit.
That the early editions gross amalgamation of Japanese, Chinese, Korean, and more cultural
How is it a gross amalgamation?
artifacts
What does that
Right.
mean?
into this Rokugan that exists in that RPG and card game has got only better with time as they've actually found their own stories. They developed their own mythology.
What
without
does that
trying to
mean? They
bastardize.
found their own stories. How is finding stories in Rokugan in L5R any different? What is the deciding factor here? If they continue to make Al-Qadim source books and supplements,
They
how
won't.
would they wouldn't, and they shouldn't, because I actually don't think Al-Qadim was good. But how would iterating and being continually inspired by this truly new creation, Al-Qadim, it's a region, I don't know if it's a kingdom or a conglomeration of city-states, I'm not sure, but it's a region in D&D, in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
What are the metrics by which you're making your argument? You don't have none, because the point isn't to make an argument, it's to make a moral accusation. Like we said in the Safety Tools video, it's about bamboozling
Right.
regular, normal people and weaponizing their good nature.
Yeah. They do not use language to communicate. They use language to manipulate.
Yes.
This is a case where, like you said, they are playing on people's good nature, and it's not, what do I have to say to convince you of my position? It's, what do I have to say to get you to do what I want? That's all it is.
Real world ones. And there's a reason Karatur and the Oriental Adventures and Al-Qadim and so forth are not really explored in current edition D&D. They've moved
Because the people are cowards.
Correct.
away from trying to create rough analogues of real world cultures and places.
That's not true. Because the rough analog real world culture that is now the dominant, and many people have said this a million times before us, but they're right. The real world amalgamation culture that they are putting into D&D is downtown LA and downtown Seattle.
Correct.
That's what it is. It's a carbon copy of that with medieval trappings and nothing more, which is fucking stupid. There's actual interesting things about other countries, other cultures, and historical periods that you can draw from.
Right.
The most uninteresting people I have ever fucking met are from Los
Came
Angeles.
from the West Coast.
Yeah.
Peoples and so forth. So this is a long, not even a rebuttal. It's kind of echoing what the author is saying, but I also think that a lot of the solution comes down to presentation.
Again, words that mean nothing.
It's not what you said, it's how you said it.
But I also can't tell you how you said it, which
Right.
makes it bad.
Right.
I think you can present an awful lot of things if you can present more diversity and more maturity.
Diversity in Dragon's
Is
Ear.
every tower midwit a thing? I hate this guy.
Yeah. It's the smart midwit is what it is, yes.
Of feeling, and I often avoid the word sensitivity in books because oddly I find when you say something like we have handled this sensitively, the people that triggers are the ones who are most inclined to get angry that you have presented a diverse range in your game.
Yeah,
What do I
again,
mean by that?
this is such, and we were saying this before. This whole framing of the discussion, it's even for the left, it's so dated. This is such like a 2015 framing of the discourse.
Yeah.
But again, it's very odd. It's very odd that
Isn't it weird
that people who are offended by the word sensitive. It's like social justice. Why would you be against social justice?
Yeah, which again, that's a 2015 framing of all of this. But it's like, isn't it weird that the people that complain about trigger warnings are the ones who get the most triggered? Like, holy shit, the programming has not been updated. Like, this isn't even how progressives and leftists talk now.
Right.
At all. Like that is like this is like a laughable caricature of the discourse. It's someone who has shielded themselves and been so carefully boring.
But that is the thing, because the gentleman gamer actually isn't a leftist progressive, not in the way he's presenting here, because he used to have a soul. He used to be one of us.
Yeah.
And he has old videos where he actually had passion.
Right. You can see it in his face.
Yeah, and you could see it now, the absolute lack of it.
Yeah.
Every other phrase is either coming off as a caricaturized Anglo to take that view from nowhere position so as to try and defend himself from any critique. It's not exactly irony, but there's something of the spirit of irony in the way he's progressing through his argument here, or his address here.
Yeah.
But he used to be normal. He used to be just a gamer nerd who loved video games
And had very good taste in
and had
games.
very good taste.
Yeah.
He was a role player.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he still is.
He may still be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But he got Willy Wonka's golden ticket. He achieved the dream. He hit the lottery. And unfortunately,
And I will say, in his defense on that, he didn't win the lottery. It's not like, he got lucky so he could work in the industry. He could, work as an RPG writer or whatever.
yeah.
That's not it at all.
He had submitted stuff for years. He had done work. He put a considerable amount of effort and good work
And I wouldn't have even known that Vampire V20 was happening had I not found his channel.
Not for his channel.
Yeah. I would have been unaware that there was going to be a 20th anniversary.
I would have been unaware,
edition.
and I would have been
And for years I would have thought Vampire was dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if I had known about it, if I had not come across his channel in like early YouTube, like pre-RPG Brigade days, I wouldn't have been interested. He showed me in large part why Vampire was interesting. Because I've said it before, I didn't play Vampire in the 90s. I didn't play it in the early 2000s. In a tremendous part, I only became interested and passionate about Vampire because of Matt Dawkins.
Yeah.
But what he found when he walked in that door to go work for Onyx Path is there's a lot of a very particular type of person, and I need to be this way.
Right.
I need to say the things in order to, or I need to amplify.
I need to amplify
Things which he probably was just a normie lib.
He's probably a normie lib.
I used to be a normie lib.
Yeah.
You know?
I was never a normie lib.
Good for you. Yeah, you're better than me.
Well, if I were to say, let's say that in Cult of the Blood Gods for V5 that we hired a sensitivity consultant to ensure that the Bahari are presenting
the real world Lilith cult that millions of people worship, the Bahari, based on a real world religion that needs to be respected.
This is also, I'll say it now because this is where he's talking about how he, reaches out to people of other cultures to ask him his opinions on these things, and he'll talk about this a little bit more in depth. But it's like, you have zero problem putting Christian mythology into games in really dark, twisted ways that Christians find really fucked up. Like Chaos Sanctum, Cain and Cain's children. Demon the Fallen. You know, like all the entire world of darkness, which is basically like, fuck you, Dad. You know, like, like, did they hire any Christian sensitivity readers on this shit? No, and they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. And
because
we love vampire.
Yeah, we love vampire. We love all these things. You should not just fucking make what you want.
Yeah.
Make what you want, have a vision, and be passionate about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if people go, I don't like what you made, who fucking cares?
Right.
Fuck you.
If it was a good idea and you actually had passion, it will stand on its own merit. Even if it doesn't make X amount of dollars, it will stand forever on its own merit.
Right.
Now, Lilith cult perspective, that all the gynecological horror that's in there, all the feminine sacrifice that's in there, is not just male gazy and written.
Which is completely retarded. Again, it's just dishonest. It's not even worth doing a takedown or a rebuttal.
This is also something that I hate, is how neutered, and I know people are going to think I'm crazy on this because we do live in a culture, there's like OnlyFans and people are obsessed with porn and all this shit. Most of our cultural, like TV, movies, books, everything has been so desexualized. And this whole thing of like, it's male gazy. What the fuck happened to people?
There are no beautiful people.
There's no beautiful women anywhere. Anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, what the hell happened to everyone's libido?
Yeah.
This is like testosterone levels in the toilet.
Nobody's
fucking
having
planet
sex.
wide.
Nobody's having kids.
No one's having sex. No one's having kids. And it's a miserable, horrible world that is made worse by attitudes and ideas like this. Right. You know what? It's actually fine to have people in chainmail bikinis. And you know what?
Awesome.
Men are not the only people who like that.
Yep. The step pyramid behind the titty twister.
What do you got
He
here?
looks okay. God damn it! I need to read these before I click on them. Everyone's invited to our next sacrifice. It's at the step pyramid behind the titty twister. Yeah. It's fucking crazy to me. Like, Zoomers aren't having sex. This is bad. This is really bad. And this sort of shit doesn't make it any better.
It's not meant to make it any better.
It's not meant to make it. It's meant to make it worse.
It's meant to make it worse. Yeah.
But it really is like this whole thing of like, oh, you made some hot chick. The Enlightenment is not to blame. This is another one of these.
Enlightenment is to blame.
No, it's not. No. Oh my God. All right. We'll talk about that another time. This is so annoying. I hate it when people say stupid stuff like that. But this whole thing of it, it's male gazy to have like sexualized hot women and sexualized hot men in something. It's ridiculous. Everyone wants to look at good-looking people. They should want to look at good-looking people. And guess what? Women like looking at hot women in TV and movies.
Correct.
It's
or
aspirational,
being them in a role-playing game.
Or being them in real life.
Or, God forbid.
Like, God forbid. Holy shit.
And essentially to titillate and exploit. The word sensitivity consult.
First,
unlike all of Vampire the Masquerade in the World of Darkness.
Also,
which is not explicitly supposed to be titillating in the most fucked up ways.
Right, and you're describing blood sacrifice and horrific body horror. This is a completely dishonest, unserious argument.
Yeah.
There's no danger of having people turned inside out. Or what do the Bahari do? They grow flesh trees
I couldn't
or
tell you.
something from blood sacrifice. It's been a long time since I looked at the Bahari, but it's
Were they pre V5 as well, Bahari?
they were.
Interesting, because I don't remember them at all. But
I think they were more present in Dark Ages, but
Yeah.
there's no danger of this being titillating or pornographic
right.
any more than the fucking Cenobites are. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, titillating.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Will fire up a certain portion of the internet because they see the word sensitive, and somehow it makes them ultra sensitive. It says,
Somehow.
Somehow
impossible
they
to know.
immediately correctly
deduce what you're doing.
I know exactly what you're doing and that it's in bad faith.
Yeah. What a
Why would they get mad
what a
at
mystery.
that? Yeah, what a mystery.
Out to the woke liberal, blah, 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 blah. I'll use the word
Conspiracy theorists. There are no woke
I'll
liberals.
say I have a level of maturity, which implies research, which
Only
implies
the woke
that
right.
I wrote it
Yeah.
or developed
James
it
Lindsay spotted.
with a broader view, and for whatever reason, it does not trigger a person. It's strange, isn't it? Strange. Anyway, all of this said, we're already addressing one of the issues that's fired Elon Musk up. I'll continue. Some people have charitably ascribed this language to authors working from bad assumptions. In the 1970s, historical war games in America were predominantly white. I think they've misspelled predominantly here. Unless...
You know what else was predominantly white in the 1970s? The United States.
Right.
Like, this is
not a mystery.
this is not a
evidence
mystery
of a
at
crime.
all. This is not a fucking mystery.
And it is also a hobby which continues to be predominantly white. Because
Predominantly male.
predominantly white male.
Right.
Because there actually are group differences in preference and in interest.
Yeah, as the male female thing is, this is so stupid because of course everyone's going to lose their minds, and some people are simply incapable of understanding what I'm about to say. On average, men and women have different interests,
Correct.
and this is not socially constructed. This is part of the fact that men and
part of
women are
our
very
nature.
different from each other. And yes, you'll have overlapping bell curves, and there will be women who are into wargaming, and there will be men who are into, I don't know what the fuck women do, but whatever
couldn't
they
tell
do.
you.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And-
that also is going to happen.
That's going to happen. And those the percentages are going to be different in those different things.
Yes, the natural ordering of things, of the peoples, the genders, the races, the ethnicities are not. It's not the perfect. What is it? Entropy distribution. It's not total stasis of a complete slop mixture.
Yeah. And it's actually differences that make things interesting between.
Correct.
It's
The only way that we could even differentiate them.
Right.
There is an American spelling that I'm unaware of. Middle class men.
TTRPGs
It isn't
aren't
surprising.
for everybody, and that's okay.
TTRPGs are not for everybody, and that's okay. That is true.
Yeah.
They're for anybody. They're not for everybody.
Correct.
That they would dub a class of soldiers the fighting man. Interruption. No, it isn't surprising they would dub a class of soldiers the fighting man. And again, I may be speaking purely from my masculine.
Because men are the ones who
perspective
fight.
here.
They are soldiers.
They're also the ones who made the fucking games.
Yes. There are no fighting women in war. It's certainly not in Napoleonic war game.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's like
This
pissing on me and telling me it's raining. It's like,
this whole thing is like every single person who was involved, who is still alive, who was involved in the creation of D&D or working on it in the 80s, every single one of them will tell you that they gamed with women.
yeah.
And every single one of them will tell you that most women were repulsed by wargaming and by RPGs. It's
Yes.
not that they weren't invited. It's that
They didn't want to do it.
They didn't want to do it, and they thought you were a fucking dork,
And they were right.
and they were right, and they didn't want to reproduce with you.
Correct.
Like, this is fucking stupid. It's not
Yeah.
because it wasn't
We're
welcoming.
being kept out.
Right.
Oh no, all the fat nerds desperately want to keep the women away.
Yeah, literally has never happened.
Yeah, but I have, again, maybe because it isn't my issue, maybe because it has never affected me, but to use an example of a game I've worked on, They Came From Beneath the Sea, we have an archetype called the Everyman. Because for me, the everyman is symbolic of the 1950s working class.
Just like a
blue-collar
fighting man
hero.
is symbolic of a soldier.
Now, it would be very easy for that to be a gendered character. For that to look explicitly like this is just blue-collar working men. How do you get around that? Well, you make sure there's context. Everything that follows the everyman explains that everyman can come from any gender. This could represent the
Not the fucking
or
point.
you can assume that your audience that you're writing for is intelligent and doesn't need some fucking retarded hand-holding for this
Right.
shit.
Well, it would help if
This
you were
insulting hand-holding.
right. It would also be a benefit if you weren't actively trying to sell to the most deranged, bad faith people in the world.
woman working in the diner, through to the mother who never gave up her factory work after the Second World War. Because
This is also, it's like, what about the fucking play Everyman? Like, that it's about mankind. It's about everyone. You don't need to tell me what everyman means.
she liked getting stuck in with the boys, or doing her part while her husband was off fighting on the shores of Italy or whatever. So in my view, you can use gendered language, but you should be prepared to provide context for it.
No, these are
Yeah.
these
Oh,
are
shut up.
again
of Greyhawk that is
Shut the fuck up.
unnecessary bad faith hurdles.
It's not just that it's unnecessary.
The
Hold on.
assumption that gamers are fragile idiots is insulting.
Yeah. Thank you for the $5, Broken Blade.
Or just that anyone at the
But it's not that this is unnecessary. It's that it's being put in deliberately.
yeah, because it's not that they think they're fragile idiots. They don't
Yeah.
think that they're idiots. They think that they. What do they think they are? They think they're the enemy. They hate them. They
Right.
hate normal people.
Yeah.
Who enjoy normal things.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're misguided, or overly prideful or overly judgmental at their position. They do know the score. They hate normal people, and they want to depower them any way they can.
Yeah.
And this, like the sleazier way, which involves less threat of danger to them, the better. Again, it's like you have to provide context. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's just like the L5R and Oriental Adventures thing. There's no rubric, no metric by which to judge these things. You're just making accusations.
Yeah. We got a. Let me hold on. Oh, God damn it.
Don't make a compelling argument against him ever. He will with his crumpet with tears and just make others alive and miserable.
This person says, I actually played with Matt a few times. He seems a little up in his own ass, but overall a good guy. I played with him in 1 or 2 one-shots like fucking 12 years ago or something.
Right.
It's not it doesn't matter for what he's saying here.
Right. And again, if you knew him personally, he probably is a much nicer guy. A lot of people are much nicer guys
Oh, God damn it.
in person.
There we go.
Chaotic Dragons includes a dig at women's lib. The misogyny is revealed as a conscious choice. It's an unfortunate fact that women seldom appear in original D&D, and when they do, they're usually portrayed disrespectfully. Interruption. I completely agree. I completely agree that in the decades, the first 2 certainly, following D&D's inception, that you've got a lot of damsels in distress, you've got a lot of chainmail bikinis, you've got lots of women being exploited whose basically primary trait is to look good, and I've played in games where women were treated as such. That's not to say the Red Sonjas of the world, that the heroines don't exist, but the fact that I would struggle to name nearly as many as there are men.
Do you understand that Red Sonja is in the chainmail bikini? You can't be fucking...
You can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways, man.
Is pointed as well.
And that it's fine because you want heroes to actually be beautiful.
Right.
As well as the fact that
Because beauty is good.
most of the art that I can think of is very much muscular man standing over chainmail or veil-clad.
That's
woman.
also completely...
wouldn't it be better if it was a bunch of sick people that, you know, like
it's sick,
underweight sick people?
Fat or
Yeah,
anorexic people.
Yeah, who are fucking
Skeletons.
ugly.
Right.
Like, shut the fuck up.
And they're going, fainting. I laugh, but it's true, and I can absolutely see why that would exclude some women from the hobby.
This is also you know how many women I've seen faint in real life? Like
Zero.
a bunch.
Only one
No.
reason
Yeah?
for him to do this was left
I've never
to
seen
the
that.
It's time for his regularly scheduled virtue signal.
Yeah.
Only one reason for him to do this much lefty nonsense. It's time for his regularly scheduled virtue signal. I don't know if that's the case, dude. It's just...
I don't think that's the correct
Yeah.
assessment of what's
I
going on
I don't think
here.
that's what's going on here.
Women and girls who would look at this hobby and think, well, this is clearly for boys.
You know what would welcome them in? I get your example of having a bunch of hideous monstrosities.
That would really make him want to play too.
And I don't believe there should really be anything that is exclusively for any gender. I think you're going to have some boys who might be more dramatic or might be more prone to, I don't know. My point is, yeah, yes, this is true. The fact that the Queen of Chaotic Dragons, which I assume is Tiamat, includes a dig at women's lib, I imagine this is a Gary Gygax joke because he is very fond, or was very fond, he is deceased of course, God rest his soul, of putting in sort of asides in his books that poke fun at some topical humour of the day. And we still do it today in RPGs. There's often topical asides. Hell, I think this is a terrible joke, by the way, but in Werewolf 5th edition, I think it is, I think it's 5 dots of finance mean, to be topical here, you would buy Twitter on a whim or something like that, which is utterly nonsensical because if you've got 5 dots of finance, you would realize that that's a bad idea.
Once again, was that really a bad idea? Or are you simply incapable of allowing someone who you disagree with vehemently to actually have some sort of intelligence,
Right.
and some sort of forethought?
Yeah.
Elon is at the center.
Are you just existentially jealous of someone else who has been way
Massively
more successful and is just happier than you
Right.
are?
Again, Elon, in large part, chose the president and is in the inner circle.
Right.
And a large part, that's because of Twitter and his purchase of Twitter.
100%.
He would not have been able to do this without the purchase of Twitter. And I don't think he did that. He didn't buy Twitter to do that.
Right. Right. He bought Twitter and he was on Trump's side because he had more fundamental values, and he's also not a moron, and he sees how the world is going.
Yeah, and he saw how the world was going, and he used what was
how
at
the
his
world
disposal.
already has been changing.
Right,
For,
and so it's like this idea that it's somehow some L. What's happened with
Right.
Twitter for Elon is so crazy.
yeah.
It is so detached from reality. And you don't have to like him to recognize that.
Correct.
But it was supposed to be poking fun at Elon Musk. So, what does this mean? Well,
I do agree. You should, here, though, on the technical point of order, I do agree. Don't put dumb topical jokes in your game.
That is true.
It's fucking dumb.
It's never
It's never a
good.
good idea. He's right about that.
100%.
Gaming has come on, as has progression in society in general, and I think the way games like D&D were presented, especially early on, very much was exclusionary to women. Everyone has a story about, well, I know a woman who played quite comfortably, and it isn't just D&D. Culture surrounding it was more gender siloed at the time, but I wouldn't say it helped.
Yeah, what does that
when you look
actually
at games
mean
like
when
Call of Cthulhu,
you talk to everybody who used to play back in the day and they all say, yeah, I played with a chick in my games. Okay, there wasn't 50-50 distribution of men to women in groups,
Right.
but what that tells you is
Remember when the left loved Musk when he was sparring with Trump?
Yes.
yeah.
Of
Yep,
course.
Of course. What that tells you is the hobby, the group, is permeable to that group of people.
Yeah.
It is an open door.
Right.
Women are welcome. And most women naturally just aren't interested and don't want to do it.
Right.
But if you want to, have a seat.
Right.
That's what it means.
And he's coming right up to a point. This is going to reinforce what we're saying.
the reason they became...
So he's talking about Call of Cthulhu. I got to back this up like 5 seconds.
Wouldn't say it helped. I mean, when you look at games like Call of Cthulhu, the reason they became so popular for female players was because there wasn't nearly so much of that restriction. And ironic, I know, because, of course, Call of Cthulhu originally written, not the RPG, but the short story by H.P.
Before he goes into H.P. Lovecraft, he's completely missed the point. The reason Call of Cthulhu was more interesting to women was because the war game aspect was jettisoned.
Correct.
And they're not playing with miniatures and little toys.
Right. Which is also why women, disproportionately compared to D&D, why so many women loved Vampire.
Vampire.
Because there's no wargaming. It's all about socialization and politicking.
Politicking.
And also about just being hot forever.
Yeah.
You know, there are no...
like
there
this
should
is,
be
this
no
is the whole
fat
thing is like
vampires.
people are always like, how do we get more women in D&D? It's like, that game has already been invented.
Vampire the Masquerade.
It's Vampire the Masquerade.
Lovecraft, who was hardly a bastion of progression. Although, in his later years, he actually came to acknowledge how he had developed from his racism, his bigotry. And that's an interesting thing that they don't often talk about with Lovecraft. The idea that he grew intellectually, and not only intellectually, but also societally, culturally. And that's a good thing to know that not many people acknowledge. But anyway, I can't say the same for Gary Gygax necessarily, but we'll get on to Gary Gygax. So yes, I agree. Women are often portrayed disrespectfully in original D&D, and a lot of that has got to be laid at the feet of its original designers. I'll continue. Slavery appears in original D&D not as a human tragedy that devastated generations over centuries, but as a simple commercial transaction. Interruption again. Yep. To a degree, I would say. I'm not sure what this is referring to exactly.
But I'll
If it's
say
possible,
yes anyway.
player characters can basically hire slaves, well, not even hire slaves, take slaves as a commercial transaction with no alignment hit, no reputation hit, that it is seen as a moral good. I completely agree.
If
that's
there's
a
no
problem.
moral change, it's not a moral... If you're using that already retarded argument, but you're not going up towards lawful good. You're not going... I don't even know if there was lawful good back in initial D&D. I think it was just law chaos. Every time you purchase a slave, you're not going in the direction of law or going in the direction of good. It's not portrayed as a terrible societal catastrophe or a tremendous moral evil that we have to weep at, because D&D is largely based on certainly a more sword and sorcery initial inspiration.
Brutal.
And it's brutal. It's the Conan verse. It's Elric. It's a dark, broken world. And tragedy in all forms and circumstances happen all the time.
Right.
That's part of what makes it dark. It's part of what makes it sword and sorcery.
But it's not even just sword and sorcery. If you want to play in mythic Rome or historical Rome.
Yeah, there were legions of slaves.
Yeah, slavery is a part of the life of the world that you're playing in.
And many of those slaves were white. They were European.
And
it doesn't even matter.
That's not the point. It's that it doesn't need to be if you are playing a character. And Matt, this is the thing. If he's somehow watching this, which I doubt he will, you know how to role play, and that is to play the character as if they were a real person in a real world, as if these fantastical rather, so people don't take this out of context, are real. If you're playing in a world where slavery is a part of life,
and has been forever.
And has been forever. You don't have to sit there and use a cat of nine tails beating yourself over about this.
Right.
Or making some sort of it's not portrayed as an evil that needs to be overcome. Because if you're a character in that world, it might not be viewed as an evil.
Correct.
It's like,
I don't want to be a slave.
Yeah.
Obviously. I don't want to be murdered by orcs or murdered by pirates.
Right.
Either.
And here's the thing, because again, and I wish I had Makwahital here, it's on my shelf. But Makwahital by The Basic Expert, which is a super thoroughly researched game where you play Aztec warriors. The way you advance in that game is through gaining status points. And status points are largely gained by taking slaves, by going out and conquering other people and taking slaves for human sacrifice. Like it's hearts for XP, slaves for XP. And that makes sense in the context of the world. It takes the culture seriously.
Right.
It's basically making your world lose its teeth. But I don't see a problem in presenting slavery in a game as a bad thing. This is the...
well, of course not. Of course not. You can present slavery as a bad thing in your game too.
Need a little more context here. I don't...
It's having a fucking imagination. This is... Can you visualize the apple? Can you rotate that visualization of the apple in 3 dimensions?
Right. And he can.
I know he can.
He can.
I know he can.
Know if all this D&D, the original D&D, basically said slavery's fine. Everyone accepts it. Because even at the time when slavery was in full force in the Americas, there were abolitionists the world over. There were people who, despite a lot of apologists today who will say, it's just what you did at the time, there were people fighting against it, which meant... It's
not apologia. It is a recognition that at the time, that was the societal norm. And if we are playing a game of pretend in which we are trying to realistically inhabit
that world, the person in that world,
then that's just what was there in the world.
Correct.
That's like saying there's rocks in the world.
Right. There's magic in the world.
Right.
And there also, in real life history, there weren't always abolitionist
movements.
Yeah. Again, the slavery argument, the slavery that's portrayed in fantasy is not the chattel slavery of
the United States.
Of the United States. And it's obvious, and it's almost retarded to even bring it up because it's so obvious.
It's so obvious, and it's why this is so dishonest.
Correct.
Which did mean, and even people who carried it out, the Thomas Jeffersons of the world,
who
are, of course, heralded, applauded by many politicos today, and he kept slaves, as did most of the founding fathers of America. In case you're unfamiliar with who Thomas Jefferson is, he claimed to want to address slavery, but felt there was no way of doing so without fragmenting, breaking up his already unstable nation.
All this is at this point, this is more platitude and lamb's blood and apologies just to make it clear to my audience. I have the correct ant smell. I promise you.
Yeah.
Because none of this bullshit about Thomas Jefferson or the moral complexities of policy, of national policy, are of any concern to a player character or an adventuring group, and they
And also, Thomas Jefferson was right. We had a fucking civil war about it.
yes.
Benjamin Franklin discussed this, John Adams discussed this, Thomas Jefferson discussed this. A lot of those founding fathers discussed how slavery is a moral evil, but we do not have the capacity to deal with it yet.
And how interesting would it be to play a character in a world that had such a view as that as well? You could easily do that.
Correct.
So the idea of presenting...
But other players and other NPCs for sure will have to be role played in opposition to that as well. Because not
Correct.
everybody had that view.
Yes.
Hey guys, sorry I missed most of the stream. My Mythras card back in the mail and I'm having a panic attack. I checked the book and it doesn't have any safety tools. No lines and Bale's advice.
You should. Nicely done. I think you're going to be fine.
Man. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Thank you. Thank you, man. That was very funny. Thank you for $10.
Also, glad you picked up Classic Fantasy.
Yeah. Which we may use to play Dragonlance.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to play AD&D.
Yeah. Hell no.
Presenting it as perfectly fine. If that's the case in original D&D, I agree that's a problem. But if it's more in the case of, let's say, Fae in Forgotten Realms, where it's a notionally evil kingdom, where slavery is practiced, but your characters should probably want to liberate those slaves, should want to topple the Red Wizards, the evil government. They are there. That's antagonistic. And the slaves aren't happy with their lot. So... I don't know. I'd need more.
But this is the other thing, is that this is another way in which people will never think about. This is like, you can't think about second and third order consequences of things. You're talking about this heroic game of we're going to go and save everyone from the Red Wizards of Thay and release all the slaves and everything like that. And this is something that was handled intelligently in Game of Thrones. When Khaleesi goes around crucifying all the slave owners and everything like that, she completely destabilizes all of those countries and
ruined everything.
And it's like horrific bloodshed from then on. Like there are consequences to these things, and there's consequences, like people, and it's fine. I get it. It's fantasy. If you want to just have black and white heroism where you're not necessarily dealing with like real world consequences. But if you want to do stuff like we do, which is we want to take the world seriously.
As seriously as I can.
As seriously as I can. You need to know that just going and disrupting the entire social hierarchy of another country is not going to end peacefully. And especially for the people that you're trying to save.
Right. We were just reading.
I'm just triggered about role playing right now. This has nothing really to do with the culture war part of it.
But we were just reading the Trio of Saltmarsh modules.
Yeah.
Much more limited in scope, but even the much more.
Why is his default expression bemused incredulity?
Because that is
the mask.
That's the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the screaming, crying Wojak.
Yeah, it is the crying Wojak, the smiling mask over the crying Wojak. Yeah.
But in those early AD&D Saltmarsh modules, they did to a limited capacity basically take into account these second order consequences.
Right.
If you go in and slaughter everything and everyone, first of all, it's going to be more difficult, but also you're probably going to miss what's actually going on here, which is going to fuck you over later.
Right.
Because it's not exactly what
probably won't even have a reason to play the third adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Detail there, but let's take this at face value that you could just take slaves in original D&D and there was no moral repercussion for doing so. I would suggest at that point the game is immaturely written. In Sensitive 2...
It's not written that way, though, at all, so it's a moot point.
As I mentioned, sensitivity, maturity, it sounds like the authorial work of someone who hasn't given it nearly enough thought. I'll continue. The cultural appropriation of original D&D ranges from the bewildering, like naming every 6th level cleric a llama, as in Dalai Lama. I agree that is a silly decision, to the staggering
Why?
gods, demigods,
Yeah.
and heroes
Why?
not reprinted in this book, including game statistics for sacred figures revered by more than 1 billion people around the world. Were players expected to fight Vishnu, one of the principal deities of Hinduism, kill him and loot his +3 sword of demon slaying? Interruption again. This is a really interesting point because I work on the Scion RPG where you play the children of gods, and some of those gods are of pantheons that are no longer actively worshipped in the world. You know, the Theoi, the Greek gods. You could be a child of Apollo or Poseidon, or indeed a Norse god, or an Aztec god, or any of these pantheons, polytheistic pantheons that are no longer present in the world. That is definitely true. And there are also active faiths in Scion. We have Buddhism, we have Hinduism, we have more besides. And I have spoken... I'm very fortunate in that in a previous career, I worked with people all over the world. And I have utilized that pool of people from different cultures, different religions, different parts of the world. I'll get in touch with someone who I usually stay in friendly contact with over the years and say, sorry to bother you, and I'm not trying to treat you as a token representative of your culture, but I'd like to get your take.
But I actually am. But
But that-
first of all,
yeah.
but also that never happened.
Yeah, but this
Or
is,
you're a complete lunatic. I'm
know-
going to call my old coworker.
but this is like what. but
Can I ask you something?
But this is also the exact same thing where they will say, you know, like, people will say, I'm not racist, but, and you can just ignore, you know, all of it because
Yeah.
it's like, that's an indication that you're racist. It's like, I'm not going to treat you as a token
But-
member of your race. But I was wondering, do you think that these stats for Vishnu are,
Are weird.
Yeah.
It's also it's a completely inverted. So the leftist critique of a normal person who says I'm not racist. I have a black friend. Like, oh, you have a black friend? You think blah 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 blah. This is exactly actually the same thing. It's
Right.
like I have a black consultant.
Yeah.
You know, I have an Indian consultant.
right?
It is the
That
same.
I pester with questions
I
about
pester with
role
questions.
playing games.
Yeah, and it makes it really awkward for him because he's a banker. So I used to work with him on the line somewhere. But again, it just goes to show it's not about it. It isn't even about to show that this is logically incoherent.
Right.
It's that everything is dishonest.
Right.
It's just a power game.
And again, the entire Vampire the Masquerade mythology is this like
Based on
this horrific sacrilegious view of Christianity.
right.
Like you don't
Sorry for making so much money.
Yeah.
I'm working on an RPG, and in this RPG you can play the children of, and I'll present a deity of which this person is a member of this faith or representative of their culture. And I'll say, what do you think of it? I'm not going to ask, are you going to be offended by it? I'm not going to ask, do you think that we shouldn't print this? I just want to know what they think of it. Almost uniformly, the response I get back from speaking to people who I've worked with, Hindus and Buddhists predominantly, although I've also spoken with Aboriginal Australians when I was working on Werewolf, the Apocalyptic Record, that has consultation from an Aboriginal Australian who I happen to know. We've also spoken to people of Native American tribes and indigenous groups.
Here are my bona fides.
in
Let's just
America.
get through
So
it.
Yeah.
We've tried to hit our bases here, and so when I reach out, I will say, "What do you think?" And they almost uniformly come back to me and they say, as long as it's presented in the context of this being a fantasy, I don't see what the problem is.
How is Vishnu
Because
in the
they're
AD&D?
normal. Because they're normal
They're
people.
normal. And how is having Vishnu and deities and demigods not considered fantasy?
Yeah.
You moron.
And that's more or less it. Some of them might go on and say, now if this translated into the real world and people started acting like...
None of them have ever said this.
Yeah.
None of them have said, whoa. You know, if your role-playing game starts translating into reality and they started acting like they could kill Vishnu. Like, this is not something that has ever happened.
I was on board until you told me that Vishnu had 366 hit points, when the Bhagavad Gita clearly says he has 415.
Vishnu was a deity to be slain and so forth, then that might be an issue. But if this is just the subject matter of a game, then it's not really a problem.
Again, this is like...
Yes!
Yeah.
It's the subject matter of a game, and it's not a problem, and that's how human beings view this shit.
Yes, and Dawkins, you know in what context you're a gamer. You're a roleplay gamer.
Right.
You know exactly what the context is with regard to Vishnu and deities and demigods.
Right.
Like this affectation of aloof baffledness is a complete lie. It's absolute cowardice.
It's absolute cowardice, and this is the thing. Like, this... Nobody cares about this shit. Like, you're consulting old colleagues and whatnot to find out if this is offensive to their culture. They're basically like, well, this is a game, right? You're like, yeah. They're like,
Okay.
who cares?
Yeah.
Who fucking cares?
Right.
Just handle the subject with research and maturity. And so that's what we've done with Scion. That Scion is
Okay, again, how has Gygax failed to do it? There is no metric by which these things are judged. They're just fiat judgments.
Yeah.
Treat all of the gods, whether they're being actively worshipped or not, with a lot of research, a lot of reverence, and not as pop culture. And the thing is, we could.
Yeah, they're not as pop culture like Vishnu.
Yeah, right.
Oh my god.
Present them pop culturally, and I think on some level that would be fine because it distances them even further from what they actually are in the world. But the point is, in this preface, the author is saying that this is an issue.
When it's
and
not.
I'm very much on the fence because, again, this isn't me who's being...
Wow, Matt Dawkins is on the fence,
Yeah,
everybody.
what a
Wow,
surprise.
this is out of character. Completely out of character.
offended here. And there will be some people of the culture being spoken of, the people who worship these gods, who are upset. And there will be others who say, oh, come on, it's fine. It's just a game. It's a piece of media. So it really comes down to how it's presented. My take, I guess...
Again, I hate this. This I'm rambling on. I'm listing all the things that I've done in these other projects. I've made all of these tangents, all of these points. I'm good. I've ramped up. I'm going to finally give my take. Some people say this. Other people say that.
But
my take is... Well, I'd really have to know the context. I could say without fear of contradiction, confidently, I would need to know the context. Okay? Fuck you! Fuck you!
If Vishnu appears in your game just as a monster, with nothing else surrounding it, that's either going to go the way of this isn't really Vishnu, the god, or...
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not actually Vishnu.
Because Vishnu isn't real.
Present it as a god. Or indeed, this is basically stereotyping an actively worshipped god and therefore shouldn't be presented in this way. But...
Vampire the Masquerade.
Right.
Vampire the Masquerade. Holy shit.
As I say, I'm on the fence, and I would probably tailor my game to my audience at that point.
Also, we're shifting the level here. We're talking about my game. This game. If this game and this GM did this, it would be offensive. You're completely trying to sidestep the issue of this person making an accusation to Gary Gygax, and this whole discussion is about the game that Gygax created.
Right.
The game of D&D.
Right.
It's not about did someone somewhere run a game that was morally objectionable or not.
Yeah.
It's an interesting subject to debate, to discuss, and as is the case in most cases, as long as you handle it with maturity and politeness, you know.
Again,
I would
whatever that
happily
means.
sit-
The primary value of the English, much like the Canadians, is politeness.
It's a sad thing.
It is a sad, disgusting value.
Yeah.
down next to a game designer who would use Vishnu in a game, and I would have a chat about them, and we would talk it through.
No, this
No,
would never
no.
happen. This would never happen, by the way. There. I noticed you got Vishnu in your game.
What's that about then?
Can we have a discussion
About that?
about Vishnu?
No. Go away.
Like, it won't happen. He would never do this.
Right.
And we would agree or we would disagree, and whatever the case, we would part ways, hopefully with a respect for each other's opinions, rather
I'm sure that if the other person disagreed, you would not have respect for their opinions.
Right.
than setting each other on fire. Despite these shortcomings, D&D has always been a game about people choosing to be someone unlike themselves and collaborating with strangers who become friends. It has slowly become more inclusive.
Well, I do have to clarify something I just said, because Joshua Thomas said politeness equals sad. Okay, politeness is a good thing. I do think that you should be polite, just like I think you should be nice to everybody until they give you a compelling reason not to be nice. But politeness as the top value
Right.
over pretty much everything else is bad. Politeness over there are times where you need to engage in conflict with people. And if that's even just arguments, where politeness needs to be put aside.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that the British and the Canadians, sorry, Night Danger, tend to put politeness very, very high above most things. And it's destructive and bad.
Right.
But no, being polite and politeness as a value as such on its own.
It is a good thing amongst people that you trust.
Correct.
However, that does not, it's a different category to call it and to attribute it to a virtue.
Right. Yes.
And as the player base has become more diverse, the pool of creators who make the game has expanded to include people with a broader range of identities and backgrounds. As these new creators make the game more welcoming, the game has attracted new fans, who in turn continue to make the game more inclusive. The future of Dungeons & Dragons here at its 50th anniversary is bright. That is it now for the extract. Now, all that said, I don't think that's a terribly incendiary preface at all. It doesn't seem to be going in on a personal attack for someone. It is highlighting some...
All we did was call the founders of the hobby, the people who wrote this game, racist,
A misogynist.
sexist, misogynists. Fuck you, dude.
Right.
Some flaws that existed back in the 1970s as well, but it is...
And it's done in bad fucking faith.
Right. Just like this video
is done in bad faith.
Right. Because again, the clear presentation here, the visual framing, the auditory framing, the tone of voice, the assumed framing of his argument is everything that I've said is clearly common sense.
I think it's extremely incendiary to suggest that the future is bright.
It's extremely incendiary.
The future of D&D is bright. Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
not looking good right now.
Yeah.
The D&D brand, for sure, the D&D game. Yeah, the clear assumption that this analysis of the discourse is clearly, obviously, and self-evidently the common sense, decent interpretation of things. Yes, it's obvious that D&D and Gygax were misogynistic, and it's good that that has changed, and it probably needs to change more.
Yeah.
And I don't know specifically, I don't know the particulars about the Vishnu thing, but it is always best practice to have consultants and to do the work, even though that is undefined. It will always be undefined, and it will never be enough. This is clearly, if you do not agree with this aloof, nodding along agreement here, then you are, if not a bad person, you're in sort of dark waters here.
Yeah.
Going to set the world on fire. However, this gets posted and Elon Musk responds on Twitter. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to trash Gary Gygax and the geniuses who created Dungeons and Dragons. This is what Elon Musk says on Twitter. What the fuck is wrong with Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast? May they burn in hell. I'm not joking. That is what Elon Musk tweeted.
Yeah. Again, please let's protect the global conglomerate.
Yeah.
Please protect the multinational company.
It's utter... Yeah. Utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. Well, anyway. So Elon Musk tweets that, someone else responds, and he responds flippantly with, how much is Hasbro? Thus implying that D&D needs to be remade, and he will make sure it happens by buying the company, by silencing the people who are currently trying to defile the memory of Dungeons and Dragons, an active property which is selling better than it ever has before and is more mainstream than it ever has been before.
Again, bad faith argument.
Yeah.
The amount of sales is not in any way correlated to, or need not be. It is not necessarily correlated to quality.
Right.
Or depth of vision.
Right. They sell a lot of Pepsi.
Yeah.
That isn't a comment on quality, but it is a comment on its
Okay.
popularity.
Right.
Let's get...
But then why did you bring it up?
Matt seems like the guy that would make un-PC jokes behind
Matt
closed
seems
doors.
Like the guy that would say NP jokes behind closed doors.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Get to that main question first. Is this an intent for Elon Musk to actually buy Hasbro? No, it is, as I mentioned early on, a flippant, off-the-cuff remark that he makes and then forgets about almost immediately. Is he going to buy Hasbro? I doubt it. Let's hypothesize that he does. Let's hypothesize that he says D&D should no longer be this progressive woke trash, and we need it to go back to its roots. Ignorant, I am sure, of the fact that hundreds of OSR games, thousands probably exist.
Elon is not ignorant of that.
Yeah.
He's more of a nerd than all of us.
Yeah.
And the previous editions of D&D are still available to buy in print even now.
Yeah,
And
in
again,
print with a
that's
nice
not the
big
point.
with a nice big fucking warning about all this bad faith warning as well.
But again, it's like
it's not,
you could still get a PDF of the old. Not the point.
Not
Not
the
the point
not the
at
point.
all.
Yeah, because here's the thing: if Elon were to buy D&D as it is right now, it's not that I'm sitting here like, oh man, it'd
Finally,
be
I
great.
can buy
Finally, WotC would make a cool game again, and I would buy it and I would play it. Fuck no.
No.
I would not play D&D. That's not the point. The point is that the progressive left has been marching through nerd culture, overturning the altars and defiling the temples and destroying
And much
the
more than
symbols.
nerd culture. It's
It's
in
everywhere.
the culture.
It's everywhere.
The spirit of the people.
Right. And it has been doing this in ways to deliberately demoralize and humiliate the people that loved the things as they were. This is an invading, conquering army.
And for
that
no
is
value greater than
yeah.
petty power.
Yes, exactly. So Elon getting D&D, the reason that this would be so great is because it would just be a giant fuck you to all of these people.
Yeah.
And it would, all of the you know, here's the thing. Talking about like, oh, he's just going to fire all the people who made this and blah, blah, blah. WotC already fired these people.
Right.
Most of the people that have been involved in
Are not
making
there now.
the D&D books that just got released and are still being released, they're not there anymore. They've been fired already.
Right.
So that part of it doesn't fucking matter anyway. But this is about a cultural victory. This is about taking this.
It's not about the money.
This is
about
Captain
sending a
Picard.
message. Yeah.
They assimilate entire worlds and we fall back, but no more.
Yeah.
We stop them here.
Yeah. Yes. Elon Musk, as flippant as it perhaps is,
Right.
the animus of that tweet is a moral argument.
Yes.
It is righteous anger
Right.
at the unambiguous, gleeful evil which has been done by
Right.
the progressive left to not only wokeify, it's beyond the
Yes.
woke, it's the digesting and the dissolving of all aspects of culture, be they low culture or high culture.
Right. And turning them into this gray goo.
Right.
That is simply gruel. They have extracted all flavor from Dungeons and Dragons. All
Correct.
the things, the sexiness, the
Yeah.
danger, the interesting settings they had. All of that's gone. It's just been ground up into this flavorless grayness.
Yeah. And the idea that Elon is just clout chasing here, D&D, from the total market value of the entire hobby, let alone D&D in particular, which is the biggest portion, is nothing compared to almost anything else.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. Nobody knows or cares about D&D except people who actually love D&D.
Right.
And Elon Musk is a giga nerd.
Yeah.
And
He's
he-
literally the top Diablo 4 player in the
Right.
fucking on the planet.
Right. He does love D&D. I'm sure it's
He
something
played
that
a
he
lot
played
of
a
D&D
lot of it.
growing up.
Yes. So
So this is not like
there is a greater sincerity. There is
is a
not
greater
abstraction.
sincerity.
There
Yeah.
is no Machiavellian
Right.
or cynical.
I'm doing this for
market or
clout
power-
chasing for my
Right.
audience on Twitter. Shut
That
up.
would be a terrible use of 5 dots of resources.
Yeah.
To think that you're going
Yeah.
to make a statement or make some sort of an impact. No, Elon Musk is
Right.
just a nerd who has values and is
Right.
honest with himself and with people, and he speaks his mind.
Right.
He says what he means, and he means what he says. I love D&D, simple as. I have a
Yeah.
shitload of money.
Yeah.
I hate what they're doing to this thing I love.
Right.
via drive-through RPG, so you can still play the games from your childhood without feeling like they have been besmirched. So let's say he goes in and
Again, that's like it's such an obvious lie. Again, it's like it's just like how does this affect you personally?
Yeah.
It's the smirking Wojak meme. You still have PDFs. How does this affect you personally? Fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
and buys Hasbro and then appoints someone who appoints someone who appoints someone to recreate Dungeons and Dragons. What happens to the existing Wizards of the Coast team? Well, presumably they all either get fired or they just work on this new edition of D&D.
Or hopefully they get put onto one of the rockets and fired into the sun.
This is the central issue I find with the question of what happens if Elon Musk buys Hasbro. Well, he's not going to be involved in the development of Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't even know he was a role player, although I could certainly see him.
I also don't believe that would be true. If he bought Watsy,
Oh yeah.
the guy,
Yeah.
he's involved in the engineering work at Twitter, at Tesla.
Yeah.
He designs fucking rockets. He
Right.
did the entire LiDAR system on his fucking rockets. Like the guy, I don't know. He doesn't sleep, I guess. I don't know how he does it. But this is another thing. People will say like, oh, Elon didn't do anything at Tesla. Elon didn't do anything at SpaceX. And it's complete horse shit. The guy has done a fuckload of engineering at all of his companies.
As a
And to think that if he bought D&D, he wouldn't be intimately involved in the
Right.
process is, I think, insane. And it would also be horrible to work for him.
and he probably still thinks he is one. If he wasn't so damn active on digital technology,
He was so
maybe get
active
someone
on
else to
his
speak for him.
platform.
So
If he
Yeah,
wasn't
let's
so
say this
vocal
happens.
about these opinions I hate, if only he didn't feel so free.
Yeah.
D&D gets remade in Elon Musk's image, what he would want to see from D&D. Well, guess what? D&D, like all other role-playing games, gets editions, multiple editions, and each time the game designers get to imprint a little bit of their personality and their views and what they think a game is good into that edition of the game. So you just see a new edition of D&D. What does it do to the market? Well, there'll be some people who resent the idea of Elon Musk just buying everything he wants to shut up, and so they will move to play Pathfinder RuneQuest 13th Age. Hopefully Monster Kingdoms, a game I'm developing, a wonderful Napoleonic Wars-style fantasy game, or The World Below, a game I've already developed and is already available to pre-order. Look, you can
Again, I don't mind this.
below.
I don't mind the shilling.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
mind the ads.
Right.
More power to you.
Yeah. Get the print version when it comes out. So maybe it will create a mass migration of customers the way 4th edition D&D ultimately resulted in the buoyancy of Pathfinder. Maybe.
Here's the thing that you're missing, though, is that WotC is doing exactly what you've described already, is they are pissing off and pushing away their oldest, most loyal, and most financially loaded customers.
Right.
Literally, in this case, the most financially well-off person on the planet.
Right.
They're alienating those people. So this whole thing about, oh, well, maybe, you know, this would piss off a bunch of the D&D player base and they'd go play other games. That's what's fucking happening already.
Yeah.
But D&D isn't going to suddenly disappear down the chutes. It's not going to kill D&D just because some other idiot's in charge of it.
Yeah, it obviously won't kill it
And
because
this is not true, is the thing, is that this D&D can go away. If Hasbro decides to sell that property to like
That's
Tencent or something like that, they can decide to shelve it. All of those PDFs, all those print-on-demands you're talking about, gone
go
from
away.
drive-thru.
That is true.
The product will not be sold. It will only be in secondary markets and the Trove, obviously, where you can find these things. This can go away. This absolutely can go away. It is not written in the stars that Hasbro is going to continue to make enough money on D&D to justify having it there.
Right.
Elon, I think, wouldn't ever shelve it.
yeah.
It would be available print on demand forever.
What do I think of the current team at Wizards of the Coast? I don't know anyone who works at Wizards of the Coast, so I don't know anything about them personally. I think that they do a damn good job producing the content that they do. I think the games are accessible.
I think you do a damn good job making the shit that I don't like and don't play.
Right.
They are not games I would necessarily play. I'm currently running AD&D 2nd edition because a family member wants to learn how to play D&D, and based on aesthetic alone, he went for AD&D 2.
Which is the correct
I would
choice
the correct
in
choice.
comparison to
But that-
5e.
Yeah.
2nd edition is immeasurably better.
Elon met with literally every employee in SpaceX in one day, taking 18 hours straight with one 30-minute break so he could get their feedback. He actually does due diligence, unlike other C's.
Yes.
Yeah. He actually operates like a real
And you have-
capitalist captain of industry.
Right.
A CEO.
But he also expects that everyone performs like a rock star.
Yeah.
I don't want to work for that.
I couldn't do it.
That's what he wants to play, so that's what I'm doing. And in the rare cases where I do play a D&D-esque game or run one, I run Pathfinder. So that's where my tastes lie. 5th edition D&D is fine. It doesn't appeal to me, but that's got very little to do with how the subject matter might be diluted because women are no longer in chainmail bikinis and because I can no longer fight Vishnu.
It's all connected, though.
Right.
The reason it's fine, it's bland, it's boring, it's all connected.
Right.
You can't just remove these elements and
Yes.
expect that it's like...
The reason that it's boring is because despite...
Because it's boring! Because it was
boring.
made boring because of people like you and these takes like yours.
Right, and Dawkins, despite all attempts to the contrary to stamp down this part of him, he still does have enough taste in him to correctly ascertain
That 5e is
5e
boring,
is boring as
slop.
shit.
Yes.
You know, it actually does show that he still has some
I
good
know.
taste.
I know. Elon could make the best version of the OGL at no expense to himself. This is potentially a really good application in the long run for TTRPGs. I agree, and I actually
for RPGs, yeah.
Right. I agree, and that's a take that I learned from Questing Beast the other week, who definitely didn't just read my fucking Twitter thread and then put it in his video, you know, as if it was his own idea. Let's get rid of these.
Because I play other games that aren't strictly combat simulators.
That aren't strictly bad.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can play social games through D&D, but I find anything quite limiting when there's only one social attribute. Anyway, so...
I literally can't roleplay if I don't have more than just a charisma stat.
Yeah.
How would I do it?
What happens, I think that Wizards of the Coast continues producing games. They might have a slightly different direction, and Elon Musk eventually gets bored, and you get another edition after that.
That would not be what happened. It's not, oh, here's my new... Elon bought himself a new toy and then gets bored with it in 6 months. That's not what would happen.
Yeah.
Now let's get to the Gary Gygax elements of this essay. Yeah, I know I gave a rather flippant response there. A rather flippant idea of what happens if Elon Musk buys D&D, but that's because genuinely I don't see there being a massive difference. I guess you could really clad D&D in what you might call reactionary far-right thinking, but the fact is I don't think
Elon also wouldn't do that. He wouldn't ruin it by just turning it into the right wing...
The based, not
based
woke
D&D.
D&D, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that would also be bad.
That would be bad. It would be less boring. It would be way more cringe, though.
So, yeah.
And so it would be way worse.
And dump tea for a reason.
By the way, we left on a boat and dumped tea for a reason. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for the $2, our American Patriot.
Yes.
Musk is a reactionary far-right figure. As I say, he's reactionary, he's impulsive, he's opportunistic, but I think he will just go wherever benefits him. And if he has any involvement, which he won't in the next edition of D&D, which he won't, it's...
This is the curse, though. This is back when Obama and all the late night show people were saying, you'll never be president, we dare you to run for president, Donald Trump, and then he became the president. This is how you instantiate a curse into the world. Like, that's true. Like, I agree. I don't think he's going to buy Hasbro. I think it's extraordinarily very, very, very unlikely that he's going to do it, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. The more you say it, the more that you are speaking the words of your own doom.
Going to appeal, in his mind, to whatever the market desires. You know, where are these Gary Gygaxes that are currently hiding?
Again, he's gonna do what he thinks the market desires. Yeah, like just like he did when he started an electric car company and a space company that makes fucking rockets that literally everyone said would never happen because there's no incentive to do any of these things.
Who want to burst out and remake D&D, because if they want to make original D&D again, it is already right there.
That is true, and you should not try to remake OD&D again and again and again and again.
So let's talk about Gary Gygax, shall we? Yes, this is a video essay, if you're not aware. This is the longest video I've done in quite some time. So
this actually is not a video essay. It's just a very poor reaction video.
Yeah.
Like this stream.
Like this stream.
More about the disrespect shown to Gary Gygax. And for one, I don't think this is disrespect shown to Gary Gygax. I think it's a commentary, a historical commentary on what D&D used to contain. And it wasn't just Gary Gygax authoring these books. It was he, Dave Arneson, both deceased, of course, and the team at TSR expanded from there.
Yeah. It's not a takedown. It's not slander. It's an article. It's a historic assessment. Don't you understand the difference between the categories? What are you, anti-science? Do you hate books?
To call out errors issues, unpleasantnesses
I want Elon to
that
buy as
Gary
cause
Gygax
it would
put
be
in.
funny.
Yes, it
Which
would
is
be fucking hilarious.
That is the best reason to want that.
The best fucking reason to want it.
A game. No, it's a critique.
You should never remake anything. You get only one shot at history, and once you take it, it should be preserved as it was made.
Yeah, you will. I think you should try to add to something or remix it. Take the elements of it that you find the most interesting.
Right. But
Like
don't try and put something through the cloning machine again and again.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need strict clones of things.
People should be open to critique. No one should be immune to critique. And yes, I know he
Again, this is so dishonest.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are you getting mad, bro?
Yeah,
Can't you handle honest criticism?
right.
You're not being honest. This is the thing, and what I hate more and more every single day I see it. I hate it more and more. People who comment or bemoan the state of the culture or weigh in on the culture war,
Yeah.
still taking the enemy's framing
Yeah.
of if we can just out debate, if we
Yeah.
could just lay out the facts as they are, logic will prevail.
Yeah.
You are being lied to. Culturally, you are and have been in occupied territory
Right.
for a very long time.
Yeah.
You are people living in bondage.
don't hold with the idea that you can't disrespect someone, you can't critique someone who can't defend themselves. When he, Gary Gygax, posted in forums pretty close to his death in relative terms, things like he believed in bioessentialism. He believed that there were certain tasks men were more capable of than women.
Again, this is not what he said. Not that it's a capability issue, that men and women are interested in different things. And there are strict capability differences between men and women. Mm-hmm. Physically, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Women will never have the grip strength, the upper body strength, or really any of the strength that I physically possess. It's not going to happen. Or maybe there's an outlier on the bell curve.
Yeah.
You know, I did see a female bodybuilder once that could deadlift more than 500 pounds and do all this stuff. Like,
okay.
we know. But there are differences between men and women. Like, there are biological differences between men and women, and this is expressed also in their differences in interest.
Correct.
Women are not well suited to playing RPGs like D&D because there is more combat involved, and are better suited to live action roleplay because it's more about costuming and conversation.
Because
that's
it's more,
correct.
That is the thing that they are more interested in. This is so fucking dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
It is just so fucking dishonest on so many levels because, first of all, this is the other thing where everyone always goes back and goes, oh, what Gary actually meant was this. Here's the truth. Gary was right.
Yeah, Gary meant what he said,
And he was
correct.
right.
He believed that women were less capable in the games of doing things than men, hence attribute distinctions based on gender in original.
Nope.
Yeah.
Wrong. This is all.
No.
Basic Expert also went through
Or is
this.
this not what he said?
This is not what he said.
I
People
see.
claim that that these are in the rules, and it's horseshit. Basic Expert did videos on this recently, breaking all of this down.
D&D.
So this is why people are angry too, Matt, because these are lies that are told about and repeated about Gygax.
Ginger Fraser already did show Twitter his deadlift
I did.
6 months ago.
I did. Yeah, my deadlift is on Twitter. You can see my 500-pound deadlift.
Apply the same thing to fantasy
It is glorious.
races if you want. You can apply all kinds of prejudices, all kinds of hang-ups, all kinds of, well, in this case, misogyny to a lot of the content in original D&D and put it at Gary Gygax's feet. And just because he is deceased doesn't mean you shouldn't make.
Also,
these
why? Even if there was misogyny or there's something you don't like, tell me how and why specifically that is laid squarely at Gygax's feet.
Right.
comments. In fact, far from it. If you want this to be a history book, an anniversary book talking about the history of D&D, there's no point pretending
It's also, this isn't a history book in the way that you are trying to make it mean. This is supposed to be a celebratory commemoration and an honoring of this thing.
Yeah.
And to have this as the preface defeats the purpose of a commemoration.
Yeah.
It sours the thing, and
Yeah.
it shows that this was done begrudgingly
Right.
or done only for monetary benefit because they know our stupid white men consumers are still going to buy it.
Steve's deadlift. Here's $2.
I want to see young Steve's deadlift. Here's $2.
My deadlift is not on Twitter because
That's
I do
true.
not post on Twitter.
Right.
I had almost, I had just gotten under a 2 times body weight deadlift, and
Yeah.
then I fell off the wagon. I need to
As
get
did
back to
I.
it.
Yeah. Let me see here. Yeah, okay. Mine was a little more. I was like, is 500 2 times what I weigh? Am I fat?
And if that splashes back on the reputation of Gary Gygax, well, that's kind of a stain his reputation needs to wear.
No, it's not. And this is another thing. The Basic Expert has done great videos on this recently that everybody should go and watch. The things, too, where Gygax was, responding and saying, yes, I'm a misogynist. Yes, I'm this, blah, 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 blah. Look at what he was actually responding to, because it was insane levels of bad faith engagement from people who were not even gamers. It was like this. It was literally this feminist who was super pissed that and repulsed by her boyfriend because he was playing war games.
Yeah. I could never imagine that.
which is shocking to me. Yeah,
I've never seen
it's
or heard of
super
someone
funny.
like that.
Yeah, it's super funny, but it's like you see, like if you see what, like this is an issue where like the context, actually does kind of help because
Yeah.
you can see where he's like, okay,
Fuck you.
fuck you, yeah,
Right.
fuck you,
Why are you even here?
yeah,
Get out. You're purposely poisoning this community.
we are constantly
and also Gygax has daughters that he played with,
Yeah.
and like, it's like fuck all of you people.
looking back at history and reevaluating people of note. I give an example of, let's say, Winston Churchill, a great leader during the Second World War. I think most people would agree that he was the best placed prime minister to lead Great Britain during the Second World War. Now, does that mean that he was not also a tremendous racist, bigot, responsible for many, many...
Jesus Christ.
Oh my god.
See, the thing is, I also hate Winston Churchill, but not
do
for the
too,
reasons
not
he
for
thinks.
especially in India, does that not take away from him that he was a war hawk, that all the way from the late 19th century to about 1950 he wanted a war with someone? Does it mean that he was not a poor strategist? Does it not mean he was an alcoholic? All of these things. All human beings.
Also, this is a bunch of bull. This is pontificating.
Yeah.
Him being like his natural stat array of being a Brit does
Right.
assist him here in his deceit.
Right.
This is aimless pontificating. It's
Yeah.
it's such an academic, like professorial kind of
Community
affect.
college, yeah.
Community college affect here. Again, I'm
The
trying
thing-
to bamboozle you.
I don't
the
even think it's
implicit,
community college. It's Ivy League is the problem.
yeah. But this is. Don't you think this is it's not inflammatory or derogatory against
We're just putting
Gary
the man
Gygax?
in
This
the
is putting
context
the
of
putting the
history
facts
and-
in
yeah.
line. After all, don't hear
We're
my
just
opinions.
putting- we're
There are
just
different
putting-
opinions about Winston Churchill or the British Raj.
We're just
or,
putting the facts about Gary Gygax in order, even though these aren't the fucking facts, and
Yeah.
we continually get them wrong.
right.
And we deliberately get them wrong.
because our values are malicious.
Right.
To the point that we are tutored by the world around us and become grown-ups, and even still, we may drink too much, we may smoke too much, we may
British racial stats and abilities.
possess bigotries and prejudices, you know, we may have different tastes than the person next to us, we may be spiteful, we may be hateful, we may have our hang-ups and peccadillos. All of us are flawed, and all of us are fragile pieces of porcelain, no matter how ruddy, robust, tough.
Yeah, we're trying to rhetorically We're trying to rhetorically bring it back. Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just agree that nobody's perfect? Gygax wasn't perfect. That's all that this is.
Yeah.
We're just saying Gygax wasn't perfect, and none of us are perfect. That's not a castigation of the man. That's just the way that it is. You know, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. It is what it is. Like, you've lured me. They're like, oh yeah, you're right. Nobody is perfect. Like,
Right.
Fuck you. This is like, let's walk down the lane here. Let's walk down the rhetorical lane. So I've made you forget. I've lulled you into a different phase of the conversation here.
Right.
I like to think all of us are flawed, works of art, every human being. And sometimes the flaws can be so much that you eventually shatter. And your reputation.
Basic expert response video showed more crazy feminists than I even knew existed in the 70s and more what hypocrisy than I expected. I expected a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're good videos and people should watch them.
Is destroyed, but guess what? You can be glued back together again. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It basically means all those flaws are visible. And when I look at a Winston Churchill, who is hardly an analog of Gary Gygax, but when I look at
British race stats, Monday shakes bite attack.
Winston Churchill, or another world leader like John F. Kennedy, or a musician like David Bowie, or indeed Gary Gygax, what I'm looking at here is someone who has a lot of flaws.
I'm sorry, Gary Gygax, the FBI had a file on him. They were afraid of him because he carried a gun around everywhere, and they knew that he would not cooperate with them in their investigations. Gary Gygax is an American fucking hero.
End of story.
End of fucking story. In this house, Gygax is a hero. All right. But, like, this is... Oh, he's a flawed guy. No, Gygax
was awesome. Yeah.
He was awesome.
Unrepentantly American.
Fucking awesome.
Someone who put those flaws on display. They're not hidden. And it is perfectly reasonable to critique them, to commentate on them, and to not idolize that person.
I idolize Gary Gygax.
This is also a thing. You can't idolize anybody or anything from the past.
Right.
Which is wrong.
Right.
In the business of making hagiographies.
Because that is the thing. It's you cannot idolize
pride.
anyone.
Yeah, you can't feel pride or belonging amidst a people or a culture.
Right.
Because after all,
everyone's bad.
Everyone basically is bad, and they're flawed not from a position of grace. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
It's, don't you see how dirty and damnable you are?
Right.
How dare you be remembered?
Talk about only the good things immediately after someone's death. But beyond that point, if you want to tell any kind of accurate history, you need to be able to address the uncomfortable bits. And even his own daughter has...
This is the other thing, dude. We're just comfortable with it. It's fine. It's not uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And this is to everyone who's out there that's been defending Gygax. We love you guys. But again, Gary can just be awesome. You don't have to give, like, you don't have to apologize for anything about him. He's just great.
Yeah.
He made the most important game of the 20th century. and probably of the 21st, because of the influence that it's had on video games and everything else, you can just think he's awesome.
Yeah. Simple
No
as.
apologies, no compromises.
Absolutely.
Gary Gygax was a Chad.
Expressed in a news article, because I did a little bit of research before this very lengthy video, that yes, he was misogynistic. Now she says he wasn't
I did a little bit of
lot other
research.
things. He wasn't bigoted, he wasn't racist, and so forth. But she puts it largely down to his origin, his heritage, his culture, his society, Midwest.
All
white
of these
male.
evil things. Yes. All of these evil places that spawn evil people.
Evil people
and
with evil values.
ideas.
Yeah.
Growing up, but between the Second World War and so forth and on, that was the prevailing view of the time. Does it absolve him? No, but it acknowledges.
You see, he's still responsible.
I know. Yeah. You
the kind
cannot
of person
ever
he was.
erase the stain.
Right.
He would have had choices to not be that way during the course of his life, and he chose to be that way. As we all do with the decisions we make in our lives. Some of that bleeds through into his games, into Dungeons and Dragons, into the way it presents women, into the way it presents all kinds of things. And it isn't all Gary.
Isn't it so fucked up that D&D presented women as hot
Yeah.
and like vital and strong and deadly?
Yeah. It's literally the worst way you could portray them.
Right.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Terrible.
Gygax's fault. Lots of people have worked on Dungeons and Dragons and Legend of the Five Rings and Shadowrun and Vampire the Masquerade and all the other games that have done something bigoted, hateful.
Everyone
Everything is
has this
tainted
sin.
and
Yes.
stained. It's all evil.
Yeah.
They've all had their black marks on it.
Right. And we all, always, all the time need to be ever watchful
Right.
and suspicious
Right.
of even the closest people, especially the people closest in our lives
Right.
and ourselves in our heart of hearts for the evil that lives there.
Right.
All the accusations are confessions.
Yes.
But I just want to say this. I don't know how much there's.
We've gone way over time.
Yeah.
We're gonna let him finish with some little piece.
Yeah.
And then we'll say goodnight to you guys, but let's see what he has to say.
At some point or other, they've all done it. All you can hope is that you see an eventual growth of the person as time goes on. I am unaware that Gary Gygax grew beyond this view on women. Like I said, his forum comments about bioessentialism were pretty recent to
His correct comments.
death. But I'm not condemning him. I'm not saying he was an evil mastermind. I am not suggesting anything. Or let's use a D&D term. I'm not suggesting he was a chaotic evil person. I'm suggesting he was a flawed person.
So neutral evil? What are you saying? Give us an alignment,
Yeah.
Matt.
I can't understand it unless
yeah.
you give it an
Writing
alignment
history
value.
like his 50th anniversary, addressing that should not be taboo. I think you should be able to critique anything, anyone, living or...
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Shut the
it should not be.
fuck
I agree.
up.
It shouldn't be taboo. It should be illegal.
And Elon will make it that way. Anyways, let me just tip it. There we are.
He always had a choice. They always take the moral high ground. It's just white savior complex. They think they would be the moral compass in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
If I was around,
If I was
during
around,
that
I would
time, whatever
I
it
would have
is.
made the right choice. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do want to. It is no apologies, no compromises. Is always the way to go.
Right.
And in order to be, but to be forgiven for something, you need to want it. You need to ask for
And
it.
to be forgiven for something, you need to have done something wrong.
You need to have done something wrong. But I want to, on the rare possibility that Dawkins is listening here, because I know how normal and how good he used to be.
Right.
And if you've watched, we've talked about some, I think, Onyx Path panelists before. But if you listen or watch Dawkins for years now, talking about his games or talking with the people on like the Onyx Pathcast or in interviews, it's so there's such a palpable sense of bitterness and malaise in everything he talks about. There's always a jab. There's always a sarcastic remark that's tinged with a kind of desperation or despair there. And you hate to see it because it didn't have to be this way. But like Dawkins, it does not have to be this way.
And it didn't have to be this way for this long. Anyway, we're going to say goodnight, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and sticking around. Thank you for all the generous super chats, the